Jesus said, "Men think perhaps that it is peace which I have come to cast upon the world. They do not know that it is dissension which I have come to cast upon the earth, fire, sword, and war. For there will be 5 in a house, 3 will be against 2, and 2 against 3. The Father against the Son, and the Son against the Father, and they will stand solitary." Okay, so there's a couple of things here. First of all, um, people have these divergent ideas about Yeshua, about whether he is, fully benevolent, let's say, or else he's come to judge. There's this fiery image, and then the truth is, it's both things. First of all, if he is the logos, right? There's a couple of aspects to this, because if the word and the mystery, for example, exists within the logos, and there were people who knew the higher level meaning and went after the people who were trying to preserve that meaning in order to cover it up with the fleshly level meaning. It means that their intentions were dark. They wanted to cover up the light, so to speak. They wanted to destroy all of the people and their teachings who knew the mystery and who were able to articulate these things in order to bring about an age of darkness. So this is purely satanic. And for those people, they were going to leave an illusion in their wake, a deception in their wake. They were by emphasizing him in the flesh. They didn't have to, how shall I say, do much of anything else. Because the thing is, if you don't make those connections to begin with, then you don't actually have to be taught against them because it just would never occur to you, I guess is the best way to put that. So the mystery remains hidden because people don't know to look for them. Um, but they're still there. That mystery is still there to be uh, discerned in time. And so it's interesting that he poses that there's going to be dissension within the same house. I mean, the household would essentially be the house of God, so to speak, if you were speaking about it metaphorically, um, and the father against the son. Well, again, the father is obviously older than the son, gives rise to a son. The son needs a father. A father doesn't need a son. A father is first, a son is second. I mean, a lot of these things are pretty obvious from the metaphorical standpoint. Um, but what is the three and what is the two? Um, well, it's interesting that it's put in this particular order because the three will be against two comes before the two against the three, right? So in the beginning of Christianity, there was understood that there would be 3 revelations, 3 dispensations. And the people who taught that there would be merely 2 dispensations, those who spoke for the Old Testament as we now refer to it and the New Testament as we now refer to it, argued for two, right? And those who knew the mystery knew that there would be 3 things. Remember, you should taught Thomas told Thomas 3 things, right? Not just two. Um, and eventually, once these people got power or whatever, when the three was again, uh, to be revealed as there being 3 revelations, I mean, then those who were the two, right, would then be at odds with them a second time. And this is essentially the dissension. The remember the sword comes out of his mouth at his return, right? A sword comes out of his mouth. The sword, of course, is the testament. So the war, I guess, is going to be on account of the truth. Remember, he talks about in Thomas, the scribes and the Pharisees have taken away the key of knowledge, and also in Luke, it talks about the lawyers have taken away the key of knowledge. So without that knowledge, they were able to war against us. But there's going to be judgment for them. See, what does it tell us the nature of this war is? This war basically amounts to dissension. Um, the disagreement between those two groups of people, those who see the mystery, understand again about the three, and those who don't, again, only understand it with respect to what they've been taught, against those who, how should we put it, overcame those who had the mystery to begin with. So there's kind of a sequence here. The father against the son turns against the father, and then the son also resists the father the third time, let's say, the heavenly father. And there will be a division between them, a dissension between them. So this is all intentional. I mean, the fact that he says, "which I have come to cast upon the world," that's very active voice. They think that it's peace which I have come to cast on the earth, but in fact, again, in a very active voice, I have come to cast a dissension upon the earth, a disagreement. And so again, this all ties in with the whole knowledge of the mystery, and then the loss of the mystery, the codification of that lower understanding, the perpetuation of that lower understanding for the age, up until the point at which the mystery is revealed. So another example of this comes from the Clementine recognitions. Again, I am not come to send peace on earth, but a sword. Again, a testament. Again, there is the sword that comes out of his mouth at his coming, as it speaks of in Revelation. And again, it's the Father from the Son from the Father, and it develops it a little bit further. The husband from the wife, and the wife from the husband, the mother from the daughter, and the daughter from the mother, brother from brother, etc. And I'm not sure I can actually parse this all out in all of its particulars, but there's a few things to kind of think about. Number one, anytime you're wondering what's going on, it's helpful to put the word spiritual parenthetically in front of everything. Um, the spiritual son versus the spiritual father, if you will, or the metaphorical father before in the metaphorical son, let's say. Um, what is the metaphorical wife? Well, again, that kind of can be derived, because see, the husband is to the wife as Christ is to the church, right? So it's kind of analogous. So if you think in terms of husbands, you're thinking in terms of the leaders of the church, and when you think of wife, that's a little bit more like the congregations, if you will. And if that should happen to be the case, then mother is to daughter in a sense as father is from son. So in other words, if you work it out like that, according to the rules anyway, this isn't really speculation. This is just kind of following the rules of the spirit. So if you have one generation spawning another generation, let's say, a mother gives rise to a daughter, a father. Well, I mean, obviously the mother gives rise to the son too, but the idea is that that the spiritual leaders of the early church, right, are going to be betrayed by the generation that follows, and then that generation that follows or whatever is going to be, if you will, upended by the teaching of the Father, which was, again, the end at the beginning. So, in other words, the Father is going to be vindicated, let's say, in terms of this particular analogy. And so, the wife of that original father, who was also the mother, of course, so she belongs to the same generation in this particular sense, if you're trying to work it out. So, the early congregations are basically usurped by the later congregations, again, because the daughter is later from the mother and arises from her, of course. And so, brother from brother, that would be like factionalism, let's say, all of the different Christianities, let's say, that arose, because, again, in the sense that this is teaching from, in the metaphorical sense, this is masculine, so that would correspond to the teaching. And so with father-in-law, you kind of get the idea from daughter-in-law that if the father, the original father, let's say the true father, which came before the daughter, that the daughter-in-law is the congregation, if you will, of the son that turned against the father, and the friend from friend, well, that's probably just Christian from Christian, just your generic division that exists among the people. It's very non-specific. Now he goes on to kind of make a further distinction. He says, "Whoever does not hate his father and his mother as I do cannot become a disciple to me. And whoever does not love his father and mother as I do cannot become a disciple to me. For my mother gave me death, but my true mother gave me life." So again, there's a lacuna here, so this is a little bit speculative, but just by way of contrast, you do have "gave me life," and what's that to be contrasted with, let's say, because he's comparing the true with the biological, let's say. And so there is the mother that is after the flesh, and then there is the mother, let's say, that is after the spirit, right? So with regards to him, he has a spiritual father in heaven, and his mother, as he states a little bit later on, is the Holy Spirit. So that's his spiritual mother, let's say. So the idea of here is "as I do." Again, what did he come to do? He came to sow dissension on the world. So it is dissension that he's come to sow. He's come to turn the generations from one another. He's turned us against each other. And if that seems a little bit harsh, there is sort of a happy ending here. Remember, if we take death to mean not knowing the mystery, if we take death to mean the death of the mystery, the dying of the light, the loss of our way, if you will, then life is the restoration of that, right? So even if we have been the product of false mothers, let's say, if we've been the product of the teacher, if you will, of the flesh, right? Then the teacher of the spirit will provide us with a new birth, if you will, that we will go from death to life. So what is his way? How does he love the one and hate the other? Well, again, obviously he's come to conquer death. He's come to defeat death, right? And he already has defeated it because the words are already static. Everything is just playing itself out. Underneath everything in the universe, everything is already predetermined. It's all just ones and zeros when it comes down to it. And you're just watching it all play out, kind of like when you're listening to music on using a digital file or something. It's all just ones and zeros. But as you hear it in terms of time. Well, reality is a little bit like that. I think it has to do with things are spoken from eternity to eternity. Everything is laid out on the heavenly tablets, and in that regard, it is basically static. So, in other words, there really is no death, because death is just transitory. It is just the means by which we exist in one state to transition into a different state, to be born again, you might say again. Because again, those people who knew the mystery early on, they understood that there would be 3 dispensations and that would be reduced to 2. And that those who had been reduced to 2, in other words, they existed in the state of death, right, would then come alive again when the truth came out that there were actually to be 3 testaments. So that's in effect giving them life. And so you would not want to, how shall I say, love the father that gave you death or your mother that gave you death, because that would be helping death. If you knew the way to life, if you knew how to bring people to life, then you have a true mother and a true father, the spiritual mother and the spiritual father. And so that would make it to where, obviously you are for one and against the other. I mean, you would think. But this doesn't come without a cost. Jesus said, "Whoever does not hate his father and his mother cannot become a disciple to me. And whoever does not hate his brothers and sisters and take up his cross, again, in my way, will not be worthy of me." Again, if we see him as the Logos, if we see this as the death of the Logos and then the overcoming of death by the Logos by means of this cross, again, it's a little like going from life, from knowledge, into the world of death, where you're limited by your understanding, back again into the world of life. So that is his way. That is how he does. This is as I do, he says. So in other words, whoever whoever does not hate his father and his mother cannot become a disciple to me, and whoever does not hate his brothers and sisters and take up his cross, again, in my way, will not be worthy of me. Again, it's from the place of life to the loss of the mystery, back to the place of life again. So again, it's about the physical father, the father on earth, let's say. Call no one on earth your father. In other words, no one who is bound by earthly teaching. And his true mother, that is to say, the mother after the flesh, let's say. And it says they cannot be a disciple. They can't, because again, what gets in your way of actually seeing this mystery is the fact that you're blinded by your earthly fathers and mothers. In other words, those who teach you from the point of view of the flesh, of the earth. And so you cannot, unless you turn against it, unless you renounce it, right, you cannot become a disciple to him. And whoever doesn't take up his cross in his way will not be worthy of him. Again, the writers of the scriptures, if you want to take it from the point of view of the Logos, the writers of the scriptures were encoding to be decoded with the understanding that in the interim period that they would be in a dead state, that they would therefore metaphorically, as Yeshua's words were to be lost and found, so also his brothers and his sisters, if you will, in the way. Because again, if you have spiritual peers on earth, let's say, your fellow Christians, let's say, your fellow congregations, let's say, all right, and you do not turn against them as well and take up your cross in his way, that is to say, give up this world for the next, right, you won't be worthy of him. And again, whosoever forsaketh father and mother, brother and sister, wife and child, and possessions, who beareth his cross and followeth me, shall receive the promises I have promised him, and I shall give him the mystery of my hidden Father. For they have loved what is their own, and have fled from the one who vigorously persecuted them. Well, again, if you do this, then you will be worthy of him, right? And what does he do if you're worthy? He gives you something. He gives you the mystery of the hidden Father. Remember in Revelation, there's always this refrain, whoever overcomes, I will give to eat of the hidden manna. I will give to him the morning star. He's going to give you something in exchange for giving up something else or for overcoming something else. You see? And so what is he going to give you? He's going to give you the promise, right? And how do you receive that promise, right? You can only receive it by being able to die to this world, to this teaching, to your brothers, to your sisters, to your mother, to everything and everyone that you have in your life. You have to love the truth above all of that. And that's kind of the test. If you're not going to suffer, if you're not going to give up that mystery, let's say, for the future generation, as it pertains to those who were early on in the church, they knew that the death was coming. So that was, in a sense, their cross to bear. They knew that the mystery that they taught would be lost time, and that the teaching of the two would supplant the teaching of the three, right? And so they would have to undergo, how should I say, persecution, right? because they loved what is their own. And what is their own, right? Well, the mystery of the hidden Father is theirs. The promises promised to them is theirs, right? And so that's going to give rise to a sort of hostility to them, right? Because if you understand the true father and the true mother, the spiritual father and the spiritual mother, as opposed to the physical father and the physical mother, remember it says, call no one on earth your father, right? That is to say, because they teach from an earthly level. So these people will demonize you. These people are going to attack you. These people are going to hate and persecute you. I mean, you think about it. Why did you have to kill all these people? Right? All of the early martyrs in the church, why did they have to die? Because they knew the mystery, because they understood the truth. You see, and so when the wicked take over, it is the good people who are demonized. It's the good people who are stigmatized. So they're going to call you sons of the whore when actually you are the sons of the heavens.